By the end of this video, you'll see why bright lights, loud spaces, and crowded rooms hit you harder as a highly sensitive person, and what that really means about your nervous system. In this video, you'll discover why normal environments can feel overwhelming for highly sensitive people. What is actually happening in your nervous system when lights, noise, and crowds hit you harder, and how to understand this trait so you stop blaming yourself for being too sensitive. Imagine you're wearing a high-quality microphone all day. Not one that just picks up on the main voice in the room, one that captures background hum and subtle tone shifts and footsteps and air conditioning and clinking dishes and breathing patterns. Imagine it even picked up on emotional tension. Now imagine that microphone does not automatically mute the background. It records first and then filters second. That is what sensory sensitivity often feels like. And researchers have observed this. HSPs process sensory information more deeply before filtering it out, with greater activation in areas of the brain related to awareness. Most nervous systems filter early. They decide quickly what is irrelevant, and they discard it. Highly sensitive nervous systems tend to process first before discarding. They take everything in, filter through all of it, and then decide what's important and what's not. So as an HSP, you take in more data per minute, not because you're looking for it, but because your system is wired to register it. This means the stimulation does not just register, it stacks. Light plus noise plus motion plus social energy plus temperature plus smell. Each one may be tolerable on its own, but together they accumulate. And when the internal buffer fills up, then your body says enough. And that might look like irritability or brain fog or sudden exhaustion or wanting to leave immediately because your internal recording system, as it were, has reached capacity. Now here's the part that most people miss. This trait did not evolve by accident. Across species, researchers have observed roughly 15 to 20% of individuals show heightened sensitivity to environmental cues. They looked at over 100 different species, not just humans, and 15 to 20% of each of these species, 20% of the individuals in each of these species showed this heightened sensitivity to the environment and to these environmental cues. That number is not random. It suggests a survival strategy. In a tribe, you need different types of nervous systems. Some individuals are built to act quickly and take risks and move first, and others are built to scan deeply and notice subtle changes and detect threat early, sense shifts in the environment. Highly sensitive individuals are often the early warning system of any community or any species. The ones who notice a change in weather patterns, a shift in group mood, a predator moving quietly, a plant that is slightly off, or a baby's breathing that has changed. That same wiring that now feels overwhelmed in a shopping mall once helped groups survive. The problem is not the trait. The problem is the volume. Modern life is saturated with input. Artificial lighting, constant sound, screens, traffic, open floor plans, crowded schedules. Your nervous system was built to scan forests and small groups, not airports and Costco on a Saturday. So the accumulation happens faster. And without recovery, overwhelm naturally builds. Now let's flip it. The same system that gets overloaded in crowds also notices when someone is not okay before they say it. and feels when a room's energy shifts, and detects tension in a conversation, and appreciates subtle beauty, and hears nuance in music, and creates depth in art, and thinks through long-term consequences. As a highly sensitive person, you are not just sensitive to noise. You are sensitive to meaning. In relationships, this can look like catching what someone meant beneath their words, or sensing when a conflict is still unresolved, or picking up on emotional undercurrents. In work, it can look like spotting flaws early, or anticipating problems, or creating thoughtful solutions, or producing refined and careful work. In parenting, it can look like noticing subtle changes in a child's mood, responding before meltdown, and attuning deeply. In a healthy system, people with this trait and people without it balance each other. Some people push forward, and some people scan and reflect. Some people move fast, and some people move deeply. We need both. The problem begins when you measure yourself against someone built for speed. If sensory input accumulates in you more quickly, the answer is not to shame yourself. The answer is to manage accumulation. You can ask yourself, how much input have I had today? Have I had recovery? Have I had quiet? Have I had space? The highly sensitive nervous system is not a weak nervous system. It is a highly responsive nervous system. And when you understand that, you can stop fighting the trait. And you can start designing your life around it. This is the reality of the nervous system that some of us are born with. If we're trying to be something other than what we are, it's going to be a constant struggle. But when you design your life around who you are, then life comes to support you. And that is where sensory sensitivity becomes a strength instead of overwhelm. In this video, we looked at why normal environments can feel overwhelming for highly sensitive people. And that is partly because they're not normal for us. We didn't evolve with these kinds of environments in mind. And so we have to kind of pace ourselves and allow ourselves time to decompress after getting so much sensory input. We also looked at what is actually happening in your nervous system when lights and noise and crowds hit you and why they hit you harder. What's going on is that you are taking in everything, all of the nuance, and then you filter through and find out what's important. And this is essential to be able to see subtle things that others miss. We have to look at all of the data. And when we look at all of the data, we see patterns, we see connections, we see changes, we see things that are important to see. But the cost of that is we have to go through all the data. So if there's too much coming in, then we end up getting overwhelmed and our system goes into overdrive. So the last thing we looked at is how to understand this trait so you stop blaming yourself for being so sensitive. And I think this is such an important thing, to see how we work in tandem with those who act quickly and move fast without thinking so deeply. We are built to complement them so that as a whole, we have some people watching and some people acting. And when we do take the time and stay in a non-overwhelmed state, when we take the time to filter through and look at all of these data pieces, we can create extraordinary solutions to problems. We can create depth in art, and we can create all kinds of amazing contributions to our society. So the feeling I'm left with today is that sensory sensitivity is a normal part of being a highly sensitive person. When we accept it fully, we can enjoy the unique benefits that come with having such a sensitive kind of microphone, if you will, that picks up everything in the environment and then filters through it to find out what's most important and what others may be missing that is actually really important.